For that. Okay, let's come back to the UK then. Online safety. And an event took place on Friday last week, Internet and Society, the Transatlantic Research Future. And Dame Melanie Dawes from Ofcom was speaking at it. Let's have a look and see what she had to say. She was talking about access rights to the data that lies behind social media operations and other big online platforms need to be strengthened in Britain to allow experts to use the information. So what she's saying is that, there are algorithms operating, but in the meantime, social media companies are gathering a whole host of data, which so-called experts don't get access to. It's all commercially sensitive information or stuff that would be sold by the platforms, perhaps, or used by the platforms themselves with their own advertising capabilities and so on. But she wants access to it. She wants academics to have access to it. And, well, does she also want intelligence agencies to have access to it? That's not entirely clear at this stage. But she went on to say Ofcom is trying to build a more data-based way of measuring prevalence of types of harm for different types of users. So she certainly wants to profile the types of information that's being shared in social media and how that's being consumed by various types of users. And she said, I would like as many researchers as possible to be able to join us in the job of working out what is happening and shining lights on things that have been under the bonnet behind closed doors. She said, there's a legal question here about researchers' access to data, which I think is the real potential groundbreaking change here that would allow the broader research community to essentially play on the data and be able to shine a light on all of this. And of course, what's she hinting at? Well, of course, there are data protection laws in place in this country still, but perhaps not for very much longer. We've been talking about this quite a bit over the last couple of weeks and years, in fact. But just to remind you, two key pieces of legislation which were mentioned in the King's speech in November last year. The first one being Investigatory Powers Amendment Bill, which is now passed. So that is an act that allows the gathering of internet data, amongst other things, but also the Data Protection and Digital Information Bill. And this is really the key one because I know you've heard me read this out before, but it's worth just reminding everybody what the long title of this bill is. So the short title is Data Protection and Digital Information Bill, but just consider the scale of this. A bill to make provision for the regulation of the processing of information related to identifying or identifiable living individuals, to make provision about services consisting of the use of information to ascertain and verify facts about individuals, to make provision about access to customer data and business data, to make provision about privacy and electronic communications, to make provision about services for the provision of electronic signatures, electronic seals, and other trust services, to make provision about the disclosure of information to improve public service delivery, to make provision for the implementation of agreements on sharing information for law enforcement purposes, to make provision about the keeping of and maintenance of registers of births and deaths, to make provision about the information standards for health and social care, to establish the Information Commission, to make provision about oversight of biometric data and for connected purposes. And Alex, just very quickly, I'd be interested in your thoughts because that is such a wide-ranging bill. And the one thing that it doesn't specifically mention there, but which is absolutely included, is the sharing of data with foreign countries, particularly the United States here. But it's such a broad range, a wide-ranging bill. This is something people should really be getting motivated about.
It should. If you look at countries which are ahead in the data digitization stakes, they don't have a single act doing this, but they already do have a single app. Some European countries, some East Asian countries, a number of African countries suddenly have the normalized expectation that you go to a single smartphone app and deal with My Government that way. And all of what you read out is then done via the one bridge. But as you say, that's the front end, that the back end is what's done with all this data and can it be hived off. But people might not be aware of that if they just think that it's a provision for making their lives easier.
Indeed. So let's just end with a little quote from Melanie Dawes from the BBC. I think this was BBC Breakfast a few days ago. Let's have a listen to this.
At the moment, teenagers, younger children, up and down the country can experience harmful content on their social media feeds again and again, and this has become normalised, and that has to change. So we are demanding, in what we're saying today, proper age checks so we know who younger people are.
But of course, if you're going to have proper age checks for younger people, that you're going to have proper age checks for adults as well, because how do you identify whether somebody is a younger person or not? So we'll talk a bit more about that in extra. Alex, let's just finish off with a couple of and finalies.
Yes, the first one's from me, and I thought this was a good capture of the moment by stonetoss.com. We have a kind of a neo-Marxist, maybe one of the agitators you see around in the West these days, saying, actually, communism is about helping people. And a normie is not convinced and says, I disagree. And the first guy says, I am going to ruin your life.
Yes, okay, thank you. And well, I wanted to put this on. This is from Australians for Assange, and it's got, of course, this new portrait of King Charles. The first portrait of King Charles, they say, seemingly burning in hell for not granting Julian Assange a royal pardon among infinite atrocities of the crown. Well, I just wanted to put that in context with an absolutely fantastic little bit of video, which I'm quite sure most people will have seen already because it's going viral on social media at the moment from Oracle Films. But I couldn't resist playing it out because this is the apparent unveiling of this portrait.
And there's as well. Who It's remarkable actually how it has turned out.
Has it changed that much since you last saw it?
A little bit.
Yeah. I had to put on the extra medals and regalia.
So no doubt we'll be talking about that in extra as well, but absolutely excellent piece of work from Oracle, and I suppose we might describe that as a deep fake. But anyway, we will talk more about that later. Thank you to Vanessa and Alex for joining me today. I hope everybody has enjoyed today's programme. We'll be back in a few minutes for UK Column News Extra. If you aren't joining us for that because you're not a member, please consider joining us. We do need your support. But otherwise, we'll see you for the interview tomorrow at 1 p.m. and for the news on Friday. See you then. Bye-bye.